And now on to one of my favorite topics of conversation, font sizing using CSS. This might not seem like a big deal. You might go, well, what the heck? I'll just set it to 12 point or 13 point, or maybe I'll make my headings 15 point. Who cares? Well, that may very well be the case for you, but I want to make sure that a lot of the sites that I'm building are actually going to be scalable. In other words, when someone's browsing my website on a handheld device of some sort or a tablet, right? Maybe I want that content to scale based on the size of the screen, including the font sizes. So I want to address 4 specific units of measurement that we can use not only when we're sizing fonts, but when we're sizing anything in CSS, including objects. And those 4 units of measurement are pixels, points, percentage, and ems. Now, pixels and points are what are referred to as fixed or absolute font sizes. When I set the font size in the previous exercise on my paragraph to 12 point, that's a fixed size. So it doesn't matter what kind of device the visitor is using to view my site on, the size is always going to be 12 point. It's always going to be fixed. Okay? So points, of course, are a unit of measurement that come from the design world. We're all comfortable working in points. But oftentimes what will happen is designers will begin using pixels instead. So font-size 12px. And I'm going to break this onto a second line just so you can see this a little more clearly. There we go, something like that, right? And a lot of designers prefer using pixels because pixels is what's being used throughout the entire screen for things like our menus and our headers and our main content areas and our footer across the bottom and all the rest of it, right? So they want to stick with using pixels for the font sizing as well. And that's just fine. But if I go and save and then refresh, you can see 12 pixels is a lot smaller than 12 point. And pixels is also a fixed or absolute unit of measurement. So watch out for that. Okay. Now, on the other end of the scale, we have our flexible or relative units of measurement. That is ems and percent. Now, maybe I should address this in kind of a visual way. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of the font size that I've set on my paragraph. I'm going to just get rid of that extra space there. And then I have my redefined body here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the font size that I set on the body. Notice it's 10 point there, which I must have set way back at some point. And then go ahead and refresh. And what we wind up with is all of our text appearing at 100%. Now, what is the default size for my text inside a browser? What are the default settings? Well, you may want to jot this down if you're taking notes. It's 12 point, which is the same as 16 pixels. In other words, give me a quick moment here. If I come back to my body and I go font-size, : 12 point, save and refresh, no change in terms of the font size. If I come back to my body and I go, all right, fine, 16 pixels, followed by a semicolon, save and refresh, no change. Now here's where it gets a little bit wacky, and I hope I don't confuse anyone here, but here's what I'm going to do. Instead of setting fixed units of measurement, points or pixels, I'm going to say 100%. So what I'm saying here is I'm saying make the text size 100% of the default size, and it doesn't change, right? So 100% of 12 point or 16 pixels is 12 points or 16 pixels. So we're not seeing any changes here. And what's interesting is when we get into the ems unit of measurement, it works in a very similar way to percentage. But rather than typing in 100%, what I would do is I would type in 1 em. Just like that. 1 em is the same as 100%. So if I save this and then refresh, once again, no change. So again, if you're taking notes, you might want to jot this down. 1 em equals 100%, which is equal to 12 point, which is equal to 16 pixels. Okay? So they're all the same. So what we can then do is we can use this to our advantage if we want to create scalable font sizes. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to take my redefined body. I'm going to get rid of the font size there. So I'm going to stick with the browser default of 12 point or 16 pixels. I'm going to come down to my heading 1. There he is right there. And I'm going to change his font size. So what I could do is I could say, all right, make my heading 1s 100% or 1 em. All right, so that means 12 point or 16 pixels. But what I could also do is I could come in here with my ems and I could say, all right, I want to make this 120% of the current default font size, 12 point. So I could go 1.2 M, just like that. Refresh. There we go. Or I could say make it 150%, which would be the same as going 1.5 M. Okay? Save and refresh. There we go. Or, I'm dumping a lot at you here, I could say 2M. Make the font size for my heading 1 2M. And what that means is make it 2 times the default size. So the default size is 12 point, double that. So now when I refresh, my heading 1s are now 24 point if I were going to actually measure that. So maybe I could take Toronto and I could say, all right, make my heading 2s, let's make those 1.5, 1.5 M, just like that. Save and refresh. There we go. Now you might be kind of scratching your head going, okay, I kind of get it, but how does this actually play out? Well, how this would actually work is if we came along and forced the font size to be a different size for our body. So check this out. I'm going to come along and I'm going to say font-size. And rather than the default being 12 point, maybe I decide I want the default to be 13 point. Okay? So without changing the size that I'm using on H1 or H2, my Ontario and Toronto and all my other H1s and H2s are going to scale relative to the size that I'm setting on the parent tag. Remember the whole idea of structure, which is my body, right? So I'm going to come back and refresh, and there we go. Everything scales up on my page. So I'm controlling the font size from one single location on my page, and everything else remains relative to that size. That's how it works. This is exactly what I meant by relative or flexible font sizes. So I hope this is working for you. Once again, we have 4 units of measurement: pixels, points, percentage, and Ms. Personally, I find Ms a little bit confusing to work with, going, oh, right, I have to go 1.3 for 130% or 1.5 for 150%. Why not just go 150%? That I get. That I understand. Or I could go 200%. And if I save and refresh, I get the exact same result. So why not just stick with percentages? As a matter of fact, that's what I prefer doing. So for myself personally, I prefer using percentages for font sizing, and then I use my pixels whenever I'm building a layout, whenever I'm setting up structure. That's how I like to work anyway. So there you go. There's a huge rundown on working with different font sizing methods and different units of measurement inside CSS.